So you see Pentair there? So Diamond Flow, 2 cartridges in one. Pretty cost effective if you price them out. I think in comparison to a lot of carbon blocks that are out there, it's going to be a nice price point. What you noticed on the side, Alex, with the branding, another thing that's good about this cartridge is this. I think we make this polypropylene to where when it comes in contact with water, it automatically turns brown. I think that's one of the things we do. I'm joking, that's probably not the case. But it seems like all it takes is a couple of days in service and these start browning right away. But the Pentair stays white because it's heat, it's kind of cauterized together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it is. Because what it does, if you put this like into a clear housing, and this starts getting brown, but you've got the white there, for somebody who sees it, they see the difference of where it started versus where it is, and they go, man, I need to replace my cartridge. I need to, oh, that's loaded up, that's nasty, I need to replace that. So it works out good as a reminder for the customer that they need to. So that's a carbon filter inside of a sediment filter. That's what Diamond Flow is. I can take out 10 micron particulate. I can take out all the taste and odor that's on right on the outside. The other one that you had in your hand, what's it called?
This one or
the gray one?
The Flow Plus?
The Flow Plus. Now when you hold it, you said that the other ones felt more solid, right?
Yeah, this one just has like kind of a...
It's kind of spongy feel, right? Well, that spongy feeling gives it the ability to do depth filtration all the way throughout. So it's a filter all the way through the sidewall. It catches material all the way down. What size was the Diamond Flow? What micron rating?
10.
10. What micron rating is the Flow Plus?
0.5.
0.5. When you hold them up next to each other, which one's the Diamond Flow probably feels a little heavier, right?
It does.
Okay.
Probably like a really minute difference, but yeah.
But it's noticeable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Flow Plus under a microscope looks like that. And what it is it's ground up fiber. What we do, we have paper, so we have cellulose, regular wood paper, as well as sheets of other stuff like polypropylene sheets that we grind up and we put in a slurry, big tub, and we also add carbon to that tub and batch that together, mix it up, and then draw it onto a core again and make a filter. And when you look at it under a microscope, it looks just like that. Every branch of those trees and bushes that you see there is covered with pulverized carbon. Pulverized carbon, when I powder it, has a phenomenal reaction to how much surface area I get out of that pulverized carbon. So when I powder that activated carbon, if you compare it to those sweeteners there, all it takes is 5 packages, 1 gram packages of pulverized carbon, and you have the same surface area roughly as a football field. That's the benefit of grading it down to that size. So I get the same carbon filtration in that Flow Plus as I get from a big heavy carbon block like this. I also, now I was in Canada, and you know the Canadian football field. What's the size of the Canadian football field? It's like 120 yards long and it's 55 yards wide. So I actually added another packet in Canada. It's actually 6. Just to accommodate, because I knew somebody would bring it up. But even that,
it does.
Excellent. Another benefit of that particular filter is this. Remember on the carbon block, I said that the openings that the water goes through are these little cracks and caves, right? Kind of limited. The flow rates through carbon blocks are pretty restricted. They are making a carbon block for micron size is good because I can control, I have a very good level of control on what these pore sizes are. But because there's limited numbers of them, flow rates get constricted, particularly on really fine filtration, like half micron carbon blocks. Their flow rates are usually like 1/4 gallon per minute to 1/2 gallon per minute, just because there's not a lot of room for water to get through. Well, when I go to a Flow Plus, what do I get? I get a bunch more access. I get a lot more places for the water to squeeze through. So the flow rates on the Flow Plus cartridges can be 4, 5, 6 times more than a carbon block. The bigger cartridges that you have there, the 4.5-inch diameter cartridges, are for what we call the big blue housings. We make those cartridges in 10-inch lengths and 20-inch lengths. The 20-inch length cartridges on the Flow Plus, that gray one, are capable of flowing rates through them in excess of 25 gallons per minute, and still do half-micron filtration.
Dave, can you explain NSF certifications and why that would be beneficial to have?
What do you, so when you ask that, is there a particular certification that you're thinking of?
Just like when our filters are NSF certified.
Yeah, okay.
That certification.
There, so if you go to the NSF website, NSF is the National Sanitary Foundation. They are a third-party certifying agency, kind of like UL, Underwriters Laboratory,
FDA.
IAPMO, which is a plumbing organization. What they have is a lab that they take a standard and they test to that standard. And if your product passes, then it receives a certification to say that it passes that standard. And it's valuable because the NSF is a third party. They are separate from the industries that they work with. That makes that valuable. That's why we have third parties like Underwriters Laboratory and everything. They're not being paid by big companies to operate, because then big companies can say, well, you need to let our stuff pass. So they're third party. And what they do is there's a number of different standards that they test to for water treatment. Some of the big ones, some of the primary ones that you're going to see is like Standard 61. And all Standard 61 is that water will not leach things into the water. That component will not put things in the water that are going to be harmful. Okay, so it's an extractables test, Standard 61. There's also standards like 42, 52, 53 that have to do with reverse osmosis certification, safe water claims for virus and bacteria removal, and then heavy metal removal as well. So those are all standards. But here's the thing with the standards. These people out here determine and write what the standard is, and then they bring that to NSF and say, okay, this is our standard, and this is what we want you to test to make sure that this product is certifiable. So the NSF doesn't necessarily make the standards, they're just testing to the standards. Does that make sense? Here, now to Joy's point, because that's kind of all a big preamble to what the question was. What makes that valuable? What makes that valuable is for the customer, the consumer, who's aware of what those standards are and what their concerns are about whether that product makes that quality. That is all across the board, because being a manufacturer and coming from a manufacturer, we get that feedback from our customers and from the people on the field all the time. There are customers who are very, very attuned to, I want my product certified and I want them to be at a certain level, and it needs to say it on the outside of the box. And there's a cost that comes with that, but there's a value also that says, well, that meets the standard. There's also a bunch of people out there who go, I don't know, it doesn't need to be certified. I don't care if it's certified or not, because my customers don't care. So if you're going through that level of highly focused on it to I don't care, then the next level that really we need to drive through to make it valuable, or to determine what's valuable, is that person who's buying it at the end. Not this. That person who's buying at the end, because they're going to demand up. Some of the places where that's important: institutional water supplies, hospitals, clinics, offices, schools. More and more, those institutions are becoming demanding of certified products, and becoming more and more aware of the contaminants that are in the water, so that they get those certified products. So whole school districts are either A, putting in filters, cartridge filter systems,